No Nose Knows. Written by Irrespective. Chapter 13. Meet the Press. Part 1. You are a filthy yellow traitor, and I hate you. Did you know that? I would throw you into a fire and laugh as you burned if I didn't have to promptly get another one just like you, who would be twice as aggravating. Bean glared at his pencil in righteous fury for a moment before chewing on the end of it in frustration. He then ripped a page out of his notebook, crumpled it, and threw it over his shoulder. Traitors. All of them. First the paper, now the pencil. They were in league against him. Bean grumbled as he tried to think. He had been awakened by his own shivering just before dawn, despite being bundled under 3 blankets, and even now he still felt cold. Cold and lonely. That was adding to his problems, and to his frustration. He felt like he should know why he was this way, but he couldn't quite make the connection. His best guess was that it had something to do with what had happened with his parents, but that didn't seem to totally explain everything. If there was a wrong side of the bed, he'd definitely gotten up on it. Part of the worry was over what he would say at the press conference. He was sure he'd need to say something. He really couldn't fathom a reason why he wouldn't. But what? Should he say how proud he was? How nervous? Should he try to make jokes or just give a straight delivery? It was so maddening that he was beginning to get a headache. The floor was littered with his previous attempts at a speech, and now he was going to need a new notebook. If he didn't get this figured out soon, he was going to make a lot of lumberjacks happy. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. What time is it? It wasn't that long after daybreak, so it couldn't be time for the press conference already. That was at noon, and he'd be surprised if it was any later than 8 at the moment. He slowly stood and groaned as his joints protested the movement, shrugged off the blankets, and then dragged his hooves over to the door. He instantly forgot all of his woes when he found Celestia on the other side.
Good morning, Bean. Are you feeling all right? I grew worried when you didn't come down for breakfast, especially given how our evening out ended. How are you feeling?
Bean chuckled at her eager concern. I'm fine, really. I actually feel a lot better now. So they gave him a smile that warmed him down to his tail.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that.
Would you like to come in? He asked, but then he groaned and gently smacked his forehead with a hoof. That was dumb. This is your castle and you're the princess. It's not like I can tell you where you can and can't go.
This is your room, though, and I should respect that. I would like to come in if you would permit me.
You're always welcome to come in. He smiled, and he stepped back out of the way. Saucy glanced around the mess he made as she entered, and then clicked her tongue.
You really should let housekeeping come in and do their job, you know.
Oh, yeah. He rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment with a small chuckle. This is actually from all this morning. I got cold, and I've been trying to come up with something to say to the press today.
May I look?
Yeah, I don't think you can fix them, though.
Well, I have written a couple of speeches over the years, so perhaps I can offer a suggestion or two.
They both laughed as she picked up 2 of the crumpled papers with her magic and flattened them out.
Let me see. Friends, nobles, country folk, lend me your ears. No. Illegible scribbling. Not very inspiring, is it?
Not so much, he agreed with a small smile.
Today thus represents a moment of hope. We in Equestria stand ready to cooperate. Scribble. That one wasn't too bad. Why did you reject it?
I don't know. It felt more like I was telling some foreign power to tear down a wall or something like that.
May I keep this?
She asked, and then she tucked it under her wing when Bean nodded.
Bean, if you don't want to say anything, you don't have to. I can do all the talking. But from personal experience, you should always try to write your speeches from here.
She then gently tapped his chest right where his heart was. Really?
Yes. This is where your true feelings on this matter reside. So this is where you should pull your text from. It works a lot better than logic and cold facts do.
All right. I'll try that.
You should also come eat. No pony works very well on an empty stomach.
I suppose I should. Did you make pancakes again?
Not today.
She giggled as they left the room together.
I let the staff handle it, given the hectic nature of everything.
Oh, He paused for a moment, but then he added, "But there's always tomorrow, right?"
I'll make a double batch just for you.
She giggled more and booped him quickly, and he felt a pleasant warmth in his cheeks while he thanked her. The rest of the short walk was spent reviewing the details of the day. After the press conference, there would be a luncheon with a few various ministers and department heads. Then sometime in the afternoon to help Celestia get some work caught up before having an informal dinner that evening, with more ministries and nobility. In reality, the dinner was more of a meet and greet, mingle and mix affair, and no pony was expecting him to remember who every pony was or what their job entailed.
Really, it's not anything to worry about,
Celestia concluded.
Think of it like a very relaxed and informal grand galloping gala.
What is that?
It's a ball I throw every year to celebrate the founding of Canterlot. You missed it this year, but I think I can get you in as my +1 next year.
I would certainly hope I'll be your date, he quipped, and they both laughed while stomping in front of the kitchen doors.
There's one thing I need to tell you. I've invited a few ponies to have breakfast with us. I hope you don't mind.
No, that's okay. Who did you invite? Celestia pushed the door open in reply, and Bean's eyes grew wide. The dining hall was full of the most important ponies in the whole of Equestria. Bean swallowed hard. All 6 element bearers of harmony were standing around the table, laughing with one another over something humorous. Princess Luna was off to his right, chatting lightly with Princess Cadence, and Prince Shining Armor was standing near the door. Shining was the first to notice them, and he smiled widely as he locked eyes with his new counterpart. "Baked bean?" he asked. Bean extended an only slightly shaking hoof. "That's me." Shining Armor completely sidestepped the offer hoof and instead wrapped Bean in a gigantic hug. "You have no idea how happy I am to meet you." To say Bean was confused was an understatement on the level of saying the sun is hot. He simply sat there until Shining released him, and then he wondered what an Equestria he had done to get a ruler of the Crystal Empire to smile like a madmare. "It's nice to meet you too, I guess. This is gonna be great. Tell me, do you follow Buckball at all?" Bean leaned back a bit. "Buckball? Yeah, I'm trying to get a team started in the Crystal Empire, and I've been showing some potential recruits the ins and outs, and I was trying to make them a game in the Baltimore." "What? To a Broncos game? Are you nuts?" "Nuts? When was the last time they got into a divisional game?" "Well, 10, 12, 15, no. 38 years ago." Both stallions stared in surprise and wonder at Celestia, who continued on as if she gave Buckball commentary on the regular basis. "Bean is right. They're not known as the Bad Luck Broncos for nothing," Celestia added. "Now, if you really want a good model, you should try the Lost Pegasus Thunder or the Cloudsdale Manticores." No, Bean said. "The Thunder just lost Morning Glory, remember? I'd take the tidal waves any day. They got the balance and the speed." "You know about Buckball?" Shining asked, Celestia still clearly in shock. "Why wouldn't I?" she chuckled. "I met with Thunder here after their World Champion game not too long ago. The crown can't really show a preference, but I have to admit, I always did secretly root for the Solar Flares." "Alright, all 3 of you can geek out later." Cadence gave her husband a playful shove to move him out of the way. "Princess Miyamori Cadenza, at your service." She then bowed to him, but Bean remembered his manners and gave a deeper bow back. "It is an honor to meet you, Princess." "Oh, please, just Cadence will be more than adequate. May I call you Bean?" "That's fine," he laughed. "Should I be worried about the Princess of Love in here?" "You should be worried if I stay here," she replied with a grin. "You're safe for now." "Twilight, would you like to introduce your friends?" Celestia asked. "I'd love to," Twilight replied. "You know me, of course. Spike stayed in Ponyville. He said he wasn't interested in standing around in a press conference all day." "Can't say I blame him." Twilight chuckled with him. "Anyway, this is Rainbow Dash, the element of loyalty. Nice to meet you, Bean," Rainbow said, and she shared a quick hoof bump with him. "Likewise." "This is Applejack, the element of honesty." "Howdy, real pleasure to meet ya." "Pinkie Pie, the element of laughter." A blast of streamers of confetti exploded out of Pinkie's mane, and Bean suddenly found himself wrapped up in a giant pink hug.
This is so great! Pinky shouted. I've got all sorts of cupcakes and pie for you to try when you come to Ponyville. And we can compare recipes and make all kinds of yummy treats and talk about whether a cherry chunk will ever be a reality. We're gonna have the bestest new Prince at Equestria party since the one I threw for Shining Armor. And you still need to help me plan the official wedding, Celestia added. Pinkie Pie froze. Her eyes went wide, her mouth went into a small O shape, and a high-pitched squeal slowly started to emerge and grow in intensity. I'll diffuse Pinkie, Cadence quickly said while snagging Pinkie and pulling her aside. This is Fluttershy, the element of... Celestia's wedding party? Twilight laughed with Fluttershy. I don't think Pinkie Pie is gonna sleep for the next week now. Fluttershy is the element of kindness. It's very nice to meet you, Fluttershy said quietly, but with a grin. Discord told me all about you on our last tea date. He really likes you, you know. That's a good thing, right? Oh, yes. He even said he wanted to have you come over and have tea with us. You've made quite the impression on him. Well, that's nice of him. I'll say thank you next time I see him. Fluttershy smiled more. I know you're going to be a wonderful prince. I look forward to working with you. Me too, Bean smiled back. And last but not least is Rarity, the element of generosity, Twilight concluded. Rarity, who was wearing a pair of fashionable bifocals, had a tape measure around her neck, stepped forward and bowed. It is a pleasure to meet you, darling. Now hold still. What are you? The tape measure sprang forward like a striking snake, leaping around every part of his body. From inseam and barrel width to hat size and fetlock thickness, Rarity quickly wrote all of these measurements down in a thin, small notebook, then bowed to Celestia. I shall get to work on your request as soon as I get home, Princess. I think I know just the thing. Thing? Bean glanced between his wife and Rarity. There's a thing. Never mind you, darling. It's between me and the princess. Great. There's a conspiracy against me already. Only a small one. Nothing to worry about, Celestia giggled as Luna now approached him. Hail, fair stallion. I do not believe we have been formally and properly introduced. I am Luna, Princess of the Moon and sister of Celestia. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. It is indeed a pleasure to make my acquaintance, Bean replied grandly, while sticking his nose in the air slightly. But it is also a pleasure to meet you formally as well. Watch it, Buster. You're still on my shortlist. The two then broke into laughter, much to relief of Airy Pony, who wasn't aware of their unique relationship. Well, now that we all have met Bean, let us commence with breakfast, shall we? Celestia announced. Every pony sat at the table, with Celestia on one end and Luna at the other. Bean sat on Celestia's right, shining next to him. The kitchen staff then appeared and swiftly delivered a plate to every pony, and Bean was interested to see whether breakfast burrito had been prepared. But a folded loaf before him had to be as thick as his arm. With the hope that he could actually eat the whole thing, he picked up his fork and dug in. That proved to be a horrible mistake. The perpetual issue of too much salt manifested itself quickly, and he wondered if the kitchen staff had gotten wind of his complaints because now there was also enough pepper inside the lump to make him nearly sneeze. Anything resembling taste was thus promptly bucked into next week, and Bean really began to curse his upbringing, as it appeared that every pony else was quite enjoying the meal. He then tried to pick around the edges, hoping that maybe only one side was ruined, but it was for naught. The whole thing had been uniformly corrupted, leaving him with an unsalted toast and unsalted juice. Maybe he could declare himself as a personal chef. He'd stand half a chance to getting something to eat then. Depression was not long in coming for the new prince. The last 24 hours had been a string of compounding misery, so it wasn't very hard for the thoughts of inadequacy and inferiority to move in and begin their destructive work. There sat the elements of harmony, 6 mares who had repeatedly saved ponykind from destruction, and from the worst of the worst one could imagine. There sat Prince and Princess of the Crystal Empire, who had both saved Canterlot and the Crystal Empire, and who had rapidly and literally brought the Crystal Ponies out of the Dark Ages into a near full integration with the rest of the world. Then there was Luna and Celestia, who were in a league all of their own. One only needed to say the two sisters to have a respectfully odd hush come over any group. And then there was Baked Bean. A bubbling bumpkin who was claimed to fame was standing in a flower patch and forcing a princess to get married because he was too uneducated to figure out what an adjective was, let alone how to use one. He was so far beneath the caliber of those that assembled that it really was a mockery for him to even be in the same city as them. They were the true heroes of Equestria.
He was an impostor of the highest order. A manulus non grata. Maybe he should sign those divorce papers after all. What right did he have to drag Celestia down? He wasn't even totally sure he loved her. He just wanted to see if he could love her, by his own admission. There was nothing he could truly offer her other than a repeated complaint off too much salt. This was not his place. She should not be burdened with him. So, Bean, Shining leaned over. Can I ask you something a bit personal? Sure. Shining leaned over a bit closer. Do you totally feel overwhelmed by everything? That your soul feels like it's being ripped apart by timberwolves? He whispered. That was a fair allegory. Analogy. Was it an analogy? Bean nodded slightly, and Shining had a knowing twinkle in his eyes. I know how you feel. When I proposed and Katie said yes, I suddenly realized what I'd gotten myself into. I spent the rest of the day trying to calm myself down. I had the gall to ask the Princess of Love to marry me. What monkey had broken out of the zoo in my head and pushed the button to have me ask that? Why had she said yes instead of kicking me over the edge of Canterlot? Because you're the captain of the guard and one of the strongest shield wielders that there has ever been. I would think it's pretty obvious. Love and war aren't exactly two things that go together. I heard that, Celestia grumbled. Private conversation, ma'am, he replied, as Celestia took her tongue out of them, briefly before turning back to her quiet conversation with Cadence. Anyway, the closer we got to wedding, the more overwhelmed I felt. I was just some dumb soldier. How could I be anywhere near her level, or be a prince for that matter? It got so bad that I couldn't sleep at night sometimes. So, how'd you come to terms with it? I still haven't. Well, not fully anyway. But that kiss with Katie and I shared, the one that banished the changelings, that moment gave me an epiphany. It really didn't matter that I was inadequate or unprepared. What mattered is that I loved her and that she loved me. Everything else would sort out somehow and I would actually be easier to deal with because I had a companion now, an equal. If our love could survive the changelings, it could survive anything. Now, I know it's different from you. If Auntie Celestia had bonked my nose, I'm pretty sure I would have simply keeled over and died on the spot. All of this has got to be so strange, so crushing, really. So the only way I can think of to relate is to take what I felt and crank it up to 11. That's not too far off. Bean chuckled a little. Well, just know I'm here if you need an ear. When we got a letter from Celestia telling us what happened, I was elated, and you can ask Candy if you don't believe me. Why? I'm sure I only made things more complicated for you. Numbers. Up until now, there's been 4 princesses but only 1 prince. I have reinforcements now. A fellow male ruler to talk to now. Don't get me wrong. Caddy is a dream to talk to and very understanding and supportive. But there's just some things a stallion needs to talk to another stallion about, you know? Sure, I can talk to the guards and my advisors, but they can only do so much since they're not in my position. With another prince, I have somebody to throw ideas off of, to talk stallion stuff over. You and I are in the same sinking boat and we can help each other bail as needed. Bean felt a surge of happiness, fighting against his depression. You really think I can help you? You already have. You steered me away from the Broncos. Why in the name of my wife did you think they were a good team to watch? Bean chuckled. Shining leaned over closer and glanced around, making sure no one was listening. I wanted to show them how bad a team could be, and then tell them how much better they were. Are your ponies any good? Shining replied, all sincere and poor Tipper. They're a work in progress, but they're better than the Broncos. Are you any good at buckball? He shrugged and then laughed. I played some in JV in high school, but not much after that. Well, that's better than me, Bean laughed. At least you follow it. Shining laughed with him. Oh, Auntie Celestia? Yes? Can I give him the thing now? Shining eagerly asked, and Celestia smiled deeply. I believe now would be the most opportune time. Everyone, can I have your attention? Shining called, and the scattered conversations died out. Thank you, Katie. Do you want to do the honors? I would be honored. Prince Bean, would you please come over here? He stood and walked around the table. Cadence also stood, and she produced a square, thin box from under one wing.
Prince Baked Bean, on behalf of the ponies of the Crystal Empire, it is my honor and joy to officially congratulate your marriage to Princess Celestia. As a token of goodwill and in honor of occasion, I am most pleased to present you with this gift on behalf of the Crystal Empire.
Bean's eyes grew wide as the box was opened. Seated on a cushion of white velvet was an intricate crystal, carved and cut into a shape of Celestia's cutie mark, and at roughly half the size, with a thin band of gold attached to an eyelet on the top. It had been fashioned out of the beautiful translucent yellow crystal, and it caught the natural light in such a way that it seemed to almost catch fire as it passed through.
Prince Bean, please accept this gift as a token of the Crystal Empire's loyalty to the throne of Equestria, the throne that you now share with Celestia. May your union be long and happy, and may you find fortune in all your endeavors.
Every pony in the room stomped and cheered as Cadence's magic lifted the crystal out and then over Bean's bowed head. It came to a rest above his heart, and he smiled brightly as he looked at it, then at the well-wishers in the dining hall with him. This was a horrible way to keep a bad mood alive, and he loved it. There we go. Another fantastic chapter of No Note Knows, with an adorable ending too. I can't wait to get to part 2. That aside, however, I would like to thank my wonderful Patreons. Thank you, Chase LeMaster, Starlight Blaze, Thine Tiny Equine, Squall Windfeather, Sword Brethren Mordred, Stu Hex, Rain Flicker, and Dreamless Portal. My Tier 2 Patreons Capt and BlueShadow, Solus, HKH4 aka Texture, and the Animated Ghost. And of course a large thank you to Silent Titan. I appreciate you guys' support so much and it means a ton to me. If you want other ways to support me, well, your viewership is more than enough. However, a like, a comment, maybe even subscribing means a ton to me and I would appreciate it a lot. Anyways, this has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.